This episode of Legacy Curious is brought to you by Legacy Protectors. Customize insurance strategies for business owners and families who aspire to create a lasting legacy. Hello there, and welcome to Legacy Curious, the show where we explore what it really means to protect, grow, and pass on everything you've worked so hard to build. I'm your host, David Gravelle. I'm a life insurance strategist, business legacy coach, and founder of Legacy Protectors. Each episode, I sit down with the bold thinkers, entrepreneurs, and everyday visionaries who are turning their values into lasting impact in business, in life, and across generations.
Jeanne is a mom to two special needs adults and a bereaved parent. Many years ago, she started taking her middle son as a teen to private art lessons. He didn't want to continue after a while in high school, so she took over his paints and lessons. Fast forward, she had an idea for her first book and showed her art teacher, who showed her drawing and coloring techniques. The rest is history. She learned that she could draw and paint without prior experience, with direction from her teachers. She has since entered her artwork at local events like Art in the Park and the Women's Club in Paramus, where she has won awards. Jeanne also began to write poetry after her son passed. She was the librarian for the Compassionate Friends, a bereavement group, for 15 years.
And hello, Jeanne, and welcome, Cheri, as well. How are you both doing today?
We're very good, thank you. Yourself?
Doing great, thanks. And for our viewers out there, just want to give you some new introductions. Cheri Lucking is joining us today as a colleague of mine in the work that I do, and she's going to help me interview Jeanne today. And in the future, you'll see Cheri just interviewing some of her own guests. So thanks for joining us, Jeanne, on our inaugural co-interviewer
Thank you.
here. So, I first want to just start with, your background as a young person, where you were born, and what was life like when you were young?
Let me start from the very, very beginning. I have a situation where I was born at 6 months. So I was only a pound back then, and they didn't expect me to survive.
Wow.
So I was in the hospital for 3 months. And so back then, no one knew anything. There was no medical history they could do, any tests, any of that nature. And I found out only pretty recently that the eyes of my retinas did not grow to the edge of both my eyes, and they were weak because I was such a preemie. Mm-hmm. And so I only found that out recently, fast forwarding last year when I had a problem with my eye.
Okay.
So I had to go to special
where were you born?
retinologist.
Yeah, where were you born? What part of the country?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was born in
Passaic.
I'm sorry, Passaic County.
And that's in New Jersey?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and that's where you're calling from us today, right?
Yes,
New Jersey.
yeah.
Yeah, you live there. Okay, and have you lived there your whole life, or did you move around
I
when you were
lived there
young?
in the very beginning, as a child, I was my father's job was transferred to Kenya, which is Africa. Oh, so wow. For the first 8 years of my life, from 5 till I was 13, I lived overseas. So that's where my love came from, animals and nature, because of what I was exposed to. Wow. And yeah, and then
what were you exposed to there? Talk about that, maybe.
So I was exposed to different, in the schools I was attending, they were international schools. So there were a lot of people that might have been in the missionary aspect, or maybe in the embassies themselves, or things of that nature. So they were there on a temporary basis as well, and the children went all into school. So that's where some of my first friends that I met were, English and Canadian and some, and other nationalities. So it was a beautiful time in my life. And then I came back here when I was 13, and that was a huge shock, culture shock. The people here, were not understanding of who I was and my culture I had been exposed to. And so that was a real learning experience for me. So I kind of, and I was a I was not out really, really outgoing, but I was kind of shy. But to be hit with that, culture shock was very hard. Um, and, from then on, I wanted to I went to school and became a veterinary assistant. Soon after I graduated, I went to New York and I commuted for like 6 months while I did that training, only to find out there were no real jobs afterwards. Yeah, depending on the veterinarian, whether you got along with him or her and what you had to do, you learn the hard way. This was way before the internet where you had other training and things like that and support and whatnot, so it was almost like you had to sink or swim, to so to speak.
Sure.
So shortly after that, and I never took artwork and I never went to college, never took artwork in school. So I really didn't know I could draw or paint. And it wasn't until much later, after I had become married and had my sons who were all special needs, that when my one son was older, he decided, I'm going to try art lessons privately. He was not a drawer, doodler, none of that. And so I had my idea for my first story. And so I showed it to his art teacher, who became my art teacher, because he said, I'm going to high school. I don't need to do this. I said, okay, you have art in high school. That's fine if you want to take the classes. So his story stopped, my story began. So I started with my first story of my nonprofit for parents of children with speech impairments, severe neurological speech impairments, because there was no support back then. So I started 22 years ago for him.
Okay, Cheri,
And
do you want to ask her about her art? Are you checking the chat there? I'll edit this out, but Cheri, I'm typing information in the chat for you
Oh, okay.
to help get you
Yeah,
engaged
I
here.
was just, yeah, I was just going to ask. So when was the first time that you were exposed to art? Just 22 years ago? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, so actually it was in 2012, 2010, I'm sorry. That's when I first had my story in my head about praxia, which is like my neurological speech disorder for my
Yeah.
son who had this disorder. And so that's when my idea for my first book came.
Oh, okay. So you are also an author.
Yes.
Okay, so you're an author and a painter. Tell me all the different mediums that
Yeah,
you.
so I use acrylic and I've also done drawing
Okay,
and not so much watercolor. But so that was my beginning journey. So I did not, the story I had in my head. So I went to his art teacher who became my art teacher, as I explained.
mhm,
And I said, I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to, but here's my stick figures of, the character
okay.
that I want to do. And so she helped me produce with my first book. And I
So
went to
you're
Create Space.
published. You're,
Yes.
and this is a tool that you use within your business? Your,
Well,
or
as
your
far
nonprofit or,
no, no, no. So the nonprofit was separate. The nonprofit was for support for my son and for anybody who needed help, parents, grandparents, things like that. I had resources of articles and support for people who were going through that, whether they were autism or autistic and not at that particular point. So there was two parts. So back in, I guess you want to call it 2000, I would say. Um, like 1998 to 2000, that's when I started my nonprofit for my son who had the speech disorder. And my younger son is also autistic, but he's a little different than my older son. So I was doing that first, and then I became this artist with my story in my head. in 2010.
So then I guess my question is, um, what is the story about?
So the story is called He Talks Funny. That was my first story.
Okay.
And so it talks about apraxia, which is like a severe neurological speech disorder, which my son had. And he was not necessarily autistic. My third son was. But this was all part of this whole stepping back before my middle son was born with autism, or excuse me, apraxia. I had my first son. My first son was um, born and he had no issues at all. And so I was taking care of him. He was just a newborn at that point. And shortly after he was born, then my middle son was born. And my first son had passed away from cancer suddenly at 2.5. So this was, I mean, so this was, my journey before I had gone to doing the nonprofit for my middle son, and then eventually having the storyline to start me being an artist. So I had to backtrack a little bit, sorry. Yeah,
Now
so
that
that's my story.
that
Yeah. And so what was that like, coping with the loss of your son and then, having to still provide
It was
for,
very hard because back
yeah,
then there was no support, there was no resources. If you looked in the library, if you had apraxia, that was dealing with strokes and seniors. So there was nothing for children who were born with this disorder.
mhm.
So I had to kind of pedal my way and feel my way and be the support when there was not any for anybody.
And what about today? Talk about what's available today, or what are the resources that you're using and would recommend to others that are watching this?
So there are more resources now on the webs on Facebook and things like that. A good friend of mine who also had a son with apraxia we became good friends. And she was, I would say, the middle of the state of New Jersey. So I would go down to see her when she had her meetings. And that's where I got most of my material from because she had done a lot. And so I started my own support group up here in northern New Jersey, where she was in the middle of the, because before that there was really no support for parents, grandparents, teachers, anybody. So it was a sort of situation that, you know, I started something that because there was nothing. The same thing with, the nonprofit. I had to do something because there was nothing for me. There was nothing for my son.
Yeah, and what does that look like now? What does the support
It's
look like?
still
Is
it's
it
still not
counseling and
common. It's
yeah,
not common at all. Um,
is it
if
therapy
you
for your
think,
sons? Is it,
yes,
just
so
therapy for you as a caregiver?
there really back then there really wasn't. You would have speech therapy, maybe occupational therapy, maybe physical therapy, but because of the states back then, they were usually delayed. So it might take you like a year or two on a waiting list. So I just had to pay privately for my son to have speech and occupational therapy, physical therapy,
Right.
because back then it was delayed.
And was that helpful to him? How's
Yes,
he
oh yeah,
today?
it was. If he did not have that, he wouldn't, when you have apraxia, you have a neurological speech disorder. So a lot of people with apraxia have their own language. It's called jargon because they have the inability, it's like a light switch in your brain that doesn't necessarily work. So therefore, you don't have the ability to produce the beginning sound of speech. So in other words, you might have something where the child cannot say P's or B's or same sounds because they have a low muscle tone weakness in their body and their face.
Okay.
So that's where,
And are there organizations you recommend for people to get in contact with? Where would you send them if someone's watching this
I would
and wanted
send
to
them on
learn more?
Facebook. My friend
Okay.
Cherub, Cherab. She is my friend who, Lisa Gang, who, like myself, has an adult son who's now in his mid, I would say late 20s, maybe early 30s, who still might have some remnants of it. Because even if you learn how to read, you don't have the beginning sounds of speech, so you don't have that clarification. You don't have so you never babble, you didn't talk as a child. So you didn't
Right.
have that beginning sound building blocks. So you could point to something and know, okay, you're talking about cookie because you might have um, a, either a tablet or else you might have
Yeah.
on a manila folder, you might have little tabs called PEX, which is a picture exchange system. So you could point to what you want. So in other words, I want milk, I want cookies, I want play, I want whatever. And that's how I would communicate with him. Because he couldn't say yes or no. He could not enunciate. The W, a lot of the sounds would sound the same, like P's and B's and wha and la. So he couldn't say yellow, it would say whoa, and that's eventually when he learned how to enunciate. You know,
Okay.
um, so P's would be please because he couldn't say, the blended sounds and things like that.
Okay. And Cheri, you want to ask her about
Yeah.
her art? Yeah.
So what was your first piece of art? What led you to art, and how are you expressing it now? Are you doing art shows? Are you writing more books? Are you
Right now, I have about 11 books I've written.
okay?
And so what happens is when I have an idea, a painting will come first and the story comes later.
Hmm,
Oh,
very
So
cool.
Yeah.
my first idea was, I said, as a stick figure for my first story, He Talks Funny. And my art teacher helped me position the people so I knew how to draw them standing or sitting or whatever, not really knowing what I was doing, but she was giving me love and support, and I was appreciative of that. So from there, that was my first story. And then from there, I started painting and not knowing what I was doing. My first painting that I really had done was about a lighthouse.
Okay, I'm
And
on Amazon, so I'm looking at
yes,
your book. Wow. Oh, these are great.
thank you so much. So my first one was after He Talks Funny was the lighthouse,
Yeah.
which is called
Journey
Moonlight
from darkness to
to
light.
Light. Yes. And I
And
was afraid to paint on a canvas. So I do it on paper. And I only saw my art teacher twice a week.
they're
Sorry,
beautiful.
2 hours once a week.
Mhm.
I was afraid to do anything at home. I didn't know. I didn't have the confidence to start things at home and show her what I've done. So it took me many, many, many years to have that confidence to shift.
Well, then look what you did. Who are you publishing on Amazon yourself, or do you have someone that you work with
No, no,
out?
no. I publish on myself.
Yeah,
Yes.
good job.
Yeah. So I had bought ISBN numbers many years ago,
Yeah,
10 in a clip or something of that
yep,
nature.
yep.
And so I've been using them little by little.
Hmm. Well, we'll have to be sure to mention your link on Amazon, Jeanne Buesser. Did I pronounce that right?
It's Jeanne Buesser. That's okay.
Jeanne Buesser. Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn and Authors Den as well, and I'm also on YouTube.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll put all your links in the
Yep.
description. So
Okay.
viewers just go there and click on them to find her.
And my website as well, of course.
Yeah.
And
So
Etsy.
Jeannie, tell us about who your readers are. What
Yeah.
is the audience that has found a home, following your career and enjoys reading your book? Talk about that.
It's very interesting. My books are all unique. They are they all have messages in them, whether it's simple or being able to read something and go into your own self and find things about yourself you didn't know. So my books are unique where they don't follow the regular genre that you could say like a young adult. You have a beginning, you have a middle, you have an end. And you basically know, okay, there might be a few glitches, but you don't really think about yourself. And so, and many of these, my stories, they're written from my heart and my soul. And so when I write them, there was someone who had read one of my stories and they commented, they sent me a link saying, "Thank you very much. I've learned stuff about myself I didn't know." So, because you question yourself
Sure.
when you read some of my stories, and a situation that you might be in, and you can relate to it. So it's not like, as I said, it's not a regular story that, you can relate to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can always say, "Oh, I know what's going to happen,"
Yeah. Yeah. So
because you
they're
think
walking away
about,
with a lesson, and they're doing self-reflection while
yes,
they're reading.
yes,
And
yeah.
what comes next? Do you have some new books you want to talk about that are coming out, or new projects that you're working on?
I'm working on one right now. Toxi's journey was a very interesting one because I had a dream of a indigenous person that came to me, and that's where some of my artwork comes from. And so I went to the library and I decided, okay, let me just take some pictures of indigenous people just as a reference. But I got the feeling that this person was part of me from another time, another place, another journey. And so I'm talking of getting messages or getting people, things like that, and being not knowing that I was open to it, but also learning that I might have been here numerous times and different people in different situations.
Is that a new experience for you, or that you've discovered, along your
Yeah.
journey that
Yeah,
you've
when I
just
when I
been
started
aware of
painting,
that?
I did not know that this was my journey, and therefore, and so as I had started that one, that was Toxi's journey, and that person that had come to me gave me the indication that I was part of that situation maybe years, how many years ago or thousands of years ago or whatever. And so I connected with them. And then Toxi's journey came out from that. And so I painted him
Yes,
and
I see
you know,
that. What medium is that in? That almost looks like chalk.
it is.
Okay,
That,
okay,
that one is chalk.
yeah.
But I also have done, I said acrylic and a little bit of pencil, but I haven't done that much painting recently, only because I said I lost the vision of my left eye. So I'm trying to learn how to paint again on my right and
Yeah,
without putting too much, um, I guess, force on it or strain on it, but
yeah,
also um, trying to be more open and flowing, so I'm taking an art class at the senior center. And there's two art teachers. One is my art teacher, is very open and very loving and very not judgmental at all. And then there's another art teacher who is sitting on my next to me, who's into watercolor. She's Asian, and she gives me other pointers. So I'm trying to learn to take that um, those blinders that I've always had. You have to paint exactly what you see,
Hmm.
which is what I've always done,
Sure.
and trying to throw them out the window
Yeah,
and
that's
trying to be
difficult.
open and trying to
Yeah,
flow and not
right.
be too critical of myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
be
good.
more true to yourself and tap into the essence that you are and channel that. Yeah,
Yes.
well,
Yes. So
wish you
that's
well.
all new to me. That's all new
Yeah,
to me.
good. Good. Well, keep exploring that. We're excited for you to find some new ways to, again, put it down on paper so we can all enjoy it and get some impressions from it.
I
So,
mean,
Jeannie, let's
yes.
let's let's wrap up here with the $1 million question on Legacy Curious, which is, what do you hope to be remembered for through your art and your books and the life that you've lived?
Remembered for two things: live life to the fullest. Whatever's in between the dash, that's what's important. It's not about material things. It's not about how, getting rich, because you can be rich within yourself and at peace, being quiet, loving yourself. And the way that I've evolved over the last couple of years, not only becoming a unique person. And so therefore it's not, you never know from who you're going to meet. And it's always, there's no coincidence, there's only journeys. And there's a reason that you meet certain people, could connect with them, and therefore, and that's your journey, whatever it is. But the fact is, I never give up. Don't be hard on yourself, you know, be able to breathe, let things go, and see what happens. There's a part of me that I came from a part of always being anxious and always trying to control things and whatnot, because that was how I was brought up. You don't question why, you just do it. So therefore I understand that, but then if, the emotional part of you, if that's not, how can I say that in a nice way? If that's not taken care of, or if we don't show that, then you going forward, when you have your own family, that pattern can carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Great.
good positive one, not the negative one.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and for example, instead of telling someone what you do, asking them.
Right.
So I'm trying to explain that to both my sons. So therefore, when they try and communicate with each other now that they're in their 20s and 30s, they at least have a better relationship than what they had in the past.
Are
Sure.
they all able to work and provide for
Yes.
themselves? And
Well, my middle son does work part-time, but he's home with me. He works part-time at Home Depot, and he's been doing that for like 8 years. And my youngest son does not necessarily work. He goes to a day program. But I don't know for the future what may happen. He might volunteer somewhere or something like that. But I think as long as they learn how to live and grow and communicate with each other, and not only, love each other, but tolerate each other, in a sense of all of us being in a better frame of mind and more positive for everybody, then everybody wins.
Exactly.
It's just a question of have to learn how to grow, just like I have to learn how to grow being an artist. They have to learn how to let go what no longer serves and not be afraid to take that step forward. And that's one thing I have learned. And I've got, you learn only by, when you're walking along and the bottom drops out. It's like when my husband passed, not, 15 years ago. It was, something like that. You walk along and the bottom falls out. Well, I've been here before, even if it was 25 years before.
Right.
I just have to remember how to survive and how to not be afraid and to let go and just keep on walking. But when you come to a certain point like that, when you're not used to walking and going along that new path because you're so used to the old one that you've held on to.
Right. Well, we thank you for sharing your messages here, Jeannie. It's been a real honor to, listen to your story. We
Thank
would
you.
love to have you back on in the future when, you will have some new endeavors to share. We'll encourage everyone to click on your links in the description and check out your art and contact you directly to either purchase art or learn more about how they can, get involved. So thanks again, Jeannie.
I am thankful, blessed for you, both of you. Thank you so much.
of course, thank you.
Thank you to our listeners and audience for spending time with us today on Legacy Curious. I hope this conversation gave you some insight, encouragement, or just that little spark you needed to keep you moving forward in your own legacy journey. If you got value from today's episode, please take a second to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone else who's building something that matters. And if you're ready to take that next step, protecting your business, planning for retirement, or passing on your legacy with purpose, head to legacyprotectors.life to schedule a conversation. Until next time, I'm your host, David Gravelle, reminding you to stay curious, stay committed, and keep building something worth passing on.